Our international affairs editor is here with more on what many see as Myanmar's giant step back into a troubled past. Hi, Douglas Herbert. Thanks for speaking to us. Now, we've seen people taking to the streets in Yangon, Mandalay, as that report showed. Tell us more about this growing opposition movement.
Well, as you said, it's growing, for one, and that's not to be neglected. Look, this is a country that has been under military rule more or less for the past 50 years. And the exception has been, the past 5 years or so, when Aung San Suu Kyi and her National League for Democracy have been in power, after their party swept overwhelmingly in landslide 2 elections, first in 2015 and again in last November's elections, which the military claims are fraudulent. So it's a country that is really reeling in shock, and especially if you're an older Burmese right now, you can remember other instances of military coups and takeovers. But look, as that report suggested, what's very different in this case is the power of digital organization, digital democracy, and the ability of people also to circumvent attempts by military juntas, such as we're seeing now, to try to clamp down on not just Facebook, but the platforms that Facebook owns, such as Instagram, WhatsApp, very popular communications platforms. People can use VPNs to try to circumvent those platforms. But, there's also a real dilemma here for the military junta, and it's not to give them the benefit of the doubt at all. But, they are trying to, as a lot of juntas do when they take power, to shroud their takeover in sort of the close of some sort of democracy, saying they want elections, they will hand power over to a party that wins those elections. They don't want to make it look like they're brutal and cracking down too hard. They don't want to look like pariahs. And yet, they have quelled peaceful demonstrations in the past, and it's in their DNA to do so again. So what are they going to do if they want to look good to the world, yet at the same time make sure there's not growing opposition at home?
And indeed, Doug, as you pointed out, Myanmar was certainly a fragile and fledgling democratic project in recent years, to say the least. But there is, however, a feeling that people didn't really see this coming.
Yeah, a lot of people, close observers of Myanmar, were caught off guard. It's not that everyone was. There had been signals sent out by the military. Look, there has been power sharing with Aung San Suu Kyi and her civilian leadership, and perhaps the West was overly optimistic and in sort of a rah-rah mood about this transition to democracy, giving perhaps the military too much of the benefit of the doubt. There was also perhaps a sense that, with the COVID pandemic raging, with all the economic troubles the country's facing, it's one of the poorest countries in that region of the world, that the generals would have their hands too full to worry about things like coups, especially at such a delicate juncture as this one is now. Well, obviously that calculation was wrong. Look, but it's true. The military has always, even though the West has said, oh, there's now the civilian leadership, the military has sort of made itself subservient to it. It's not been the case. They've always reserved for themselves 25% of seats in parliament, 3 of the most powerful government ministries. They've always known at the end of the day they had the levers of power and could always take that power back if push came to shove. And that's just what happened on Monday.
Indeed. Now, we've seen widespread international condemnation, for example, from the UN Antonio Guterres, condemning the events of recent days. Can the rest of the world do anything about what's going on in Myanmar right now?
Well, the rest of the world can do something about what's going on. The question is, what do we mean by the rest of the world? And if there are a few very significant players among that rest of the world equation, they can prevent this military coup from being unraveled or mitigated or reversed. I'm obviously referring to both China and Russia, which blocked essentially a UN Security Council resolution that they tried to pass earlier this week, a resolution which roundly condemned this as a coup, called for the release of all of the detainees, the lifting of the state of emergency. China is against that. Now, China is trying to be euphemistic here, and it's saying, oh, we're not supporting this, the military takeover. We're not supporting the military junta. We're just, but they called it a cabinet reshuffle, trying to play it down a little bit. China throwing its weight, whether it admits to it or not, behind this military regime, because it has economic interests in the region, it shares a border with the region, and it's a power player that likes to often put its thumb up against the will of the UN Security Council, Russia as well. So they're very big players, and no matter what the rest of the world says, and no matter all the talk of sanctions in the US, if Russia and China don't play ball, the military junta will have some pretty powerful supporters on their side.
Thank you very much for that analysis, Douglas Herbert, for us reporting from our International Affairs Desk.